Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm Sara Lihz, and I have a fun light up jellyfish card for you today. And it's a shaker. This is featuring the Pear Blossom Press Easy Lights, and then some jellyfish that I released in my latest emergency card kit. These are printables that I release on my channel twice a month. I will show you how easy this was to make. I'm starting with a piece of watercolor paper. Mine is close to 6 by 6. I'm going to cut it down later, but I find it's a little easier for me to work with a piece that's bigger than I need. And then I have this Bubbles background red rubber stamp from Hero Arts. And so I'm just adding some anti-static powder and then VersaMark ink. It's a clear sticky ink, and I'm going to stamp that twice, though I'll just show it to you once, right? I want to make sure, though, that I'm pressing down really well. I am using my pressure tool. There are little grooves in the paper because it's watercolor paper, and I want to make sure that I've got ink in all of those little spots. The embossing powder that I'm using is Hero Arts White Satin Pearl. It's really more clear than white, as in you can see through it, but it does have sort of a whitish pearly finish to it. And so the bubbles are going to appear white because the paper is white or the cardstock is white. I'm going to tap that off, and I'm going to double check some of these edges that I didn't get super well. You can see it there. And then I'm going to go very slowly and methodically and heat from one corner to the other. I'm not going to show you the whole process because, quite frankly, it's hard to see, right? White on white, but you can see it as it turns glossy. That's what I'm looking for. And as soon as it gets glossy, I move on. If you overheat it, it will sort of seep into the paper. This is particularly important because we're going to add a bunch of water and watercolor to this, and we need that embossing powder to act as a resist, right? It's like you're melting little pieces of plastic onto the paper, and so the watercolor won't stick to that. I'm using some like mica powder actually that has watercolor in it. One is from Nuvo and one is from Lindy's Magicals. I will list the specific colors below, but I've had these for a long time. And I know Lindy's in particular has sort of changed the way that they package their powders and some of their color combinations. You'll notice that in both brands, you get lots of different mica and sort of pigment colors as you shake out that powder. And you don't need very much. Do not squeeze them. Just tap lightly. I encourage you to check out the Lindy's page, like their shop page. They have tons and tons of different options. I'll leave a coupon code below for you as well. And then I'm just going to set that aside to dry. I did double check, however, to make sure there wasn't any powder that wasn't wet. If you have like a little mound of powder and it isn't wet all the way through, that will brush off later because it really hasn't had a chance to sort of grab on to anything. And if that happens, it will make a tremendous mess. So be careful of that. I let mine dry overnight. I had family things going on. I came back to it, and now I am cutting it down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And I'm going to glue that onto a piece of like a purple metallic paper. The backer paper is about 65 pounds. So I'm going to die cut through both layers at the same time. I wouldn't try to die cut through anything thicker because the watercolor paper is quite thick. But we're making a light up card and a shaker card. And so this is one of the ways that I kept this card from looking like it was crazy thick in the end. To create a frame to go around the pair of them, I'm using the stitched edge circle backgrounds from Spellbinders, and I'm spraying on some Altenew Iridescent spray. It's already a white shimmer paper, but that just makes it sort of extra shiny in a few spots. Then I'm bringing in some vellum. I release free printable kits twice a month, but only part of the kit is free. This particular page is from the $5 membership tier, or there's a way to just buy it's like a 50 something page kit. It's a PDF. You can just buy the kit, but it's printable. So you can print it over and over. You can print with an inkjet onto vellum, but you need to give it a long time to dry. Like give it maybe an hour. Okay. I used my laser printer because I'm impatient and I had already waited overnight for my watercolor to dry and hadn't yet printed this. I am cutting sort of loosely around the outside. This is meant to cut out as a 3-inch circle. The printed circle is a little bit bigger than that to make sure you have wiggle room and you don't have to die cut it perfectly. This is the same page, but I printed it just onto some 80-pound cardstock. This is going to help me with my light placement and to make sure that you're not going to see the wires behind the vellum. That's one of the challenges I think of using vellum, is that sometimes when it lights up, you can sort of see the wires leading to the lights. I wanted to make sure that the light was nice and soft behind my jellyfish, and I just have like a regular weight vellum, so I'm gluing it to another piece. I'm only gluing around the outside edges because you will see glue behind it. We're going to end up covering up the edges, so that's not a big deal. And then once that was dry, I die cut it with a circle that is probably 3¼ inches. Just to the right, you can see 2 pieces of 3¼ inch acetate. I use Grafix shrink film. As long as you don't take a heat gun to it, it's not going to shrink up. It's crystal clear, really heavyweight, fairly affordable. And I'm going to put one of them behind the vellum just for stability. There are lots of kids in my family. It's 50-50. Somebody in my family is going to get this card, and I try to make them as indestructible as possible. If you know you're giving it to an adult, that is not altogether necessary. Then I'm going to glue our circle frame onto the plain acetate. So what we're going to have is the cardstock printed jellyfish with lights. Then we'll have a little space. Then our vellum and acetate layers. Then our shakers. And then this acetate with the frame. You'll see it's going to make lots of sense. I promise. Most of this is for stability and for diffusing the light a little bit more, so it doesn't look like one little tiny spot of light. It will look more like the whole jellyfish is glowing. So here is my circle frame and acetate, and then here is my die that's a little bit bigger than the inner hole on that circle frame. And I'm just using the frame to make sure that everything's going to fit nicely on the card. I'm not too close to any of those margins. And I'm going to die cut through our watercolor panel and then the piece that we glued it to. This is an easy light. If you've never used it before, it's really easy. You put the battery in and you push the button, and that's it. You get 3 different lights that all light up at the same time for as long as you hold the button. I have flipped it upside down and put that battery that has the button on it as well. And I've just traced around it in the corner of my card base. And then I'm going to score a line, maybe 1/4 inch from the longer line there. And then I'm going to cut out from the back of the card to that score line. So now I have this little flap. That will make it so that I can change that battery later if it wears out. So I don't have to worry about the light no longer working. This is the cardstock piece that has our jellyfish printed onto it. And I'm just looking for the brightest spot in the middle of that printed jellyfish of each of them. And I poked a little hole. I had a little foam pad out there to help me. And once I get the hole started, I like to take, it's my Trinity Stamps pickup stick. I take that and I push it all the way through because I want the hole to be big enough that the light will sit all the way in it. I am making sure that the yellow part at the end of those wires, which is the light, is facing outward. Normally I use like a Scotch tape or something for this, but I was out, so I'm using a different tape. It doesn't really matter which one. And then I'm testing it. I'm making sure that my lights are turning on. My jellyfish look pretty good. This cardstock piece makes it so you're not going to see the wires when it lights up. I'm holding that behind the circle opening that we've cut centered, so it looks really good. And I have a little glue behind there, and I'm going to glue that to my card base. I have a little extra cardstock here that was overlapping my trap door, so I cut that away. And then I'm adding a little bit of extra tape. It's not really necessary, but I didn't have glue where the wires are. It's only about 3/4 of the way around, so this felt a little more secure. I will gently wrap the remaining wires and make sure that my lights will fit in that corner. And then I will tape them down as well. I want to make sure those wires aren't going to be overlapping my printed circle at all. Again, I want those to be invisible when the lights are turned on. From here, you could layer the vellum layers kind of right on top of this, but I like to create a little space. It diffuses the lights and will make the whole jellyfish glow instead of just the spot where the actual light is. And so I'm using some 2mm foam tape and just going around the outside edge of that circle. That way I get that little extra brightness in there. One strip wasn't quite enough, so I did bring in an extra short little piece, and then I will bring in our vellum layer. There's acetate, remember, behind that, and so this is pretty sturdy, but it is a little harder maybe to see all the way through than you might think, and I'm being careful to make sure the placement is right. Pressing the button to light it up really helps with that. Then I'm bringing in more of those 2mm foam strips. Honestly, 3mm is better, but I was trying to make this card thinner because we have to do 2 layers of foam tape. Pear Blossom Press's World's Best Foam Tape is typically my choice, but because we have to do multiple layers, I didn't want 2 layers of double thick foam tape. So here, again, I'm testing it. I'm constantly pushing that button. Everything's looking really good. I have a little bit of temporary tape right behind the battery, holding it onto my trap door. And then I'll make sure that that's centered. And I'm going to take the backing paper off of everything. It all looks like it's lining up nicely. I'll use my pokey tool just for that double-sided tape, but then the foam tape, I can just use my fingers and release that. There is a lot of foam tape. And again, this isn't the world's best foam tape, which is repositionable. So one of my tricks when I'm using regular foam tape is that I will go around all of the foam tape and add just a thin little layer of glue. It gives me float time. It's like the front panel of my card is sort of hydroplaning on there for just a minute until I press it down into the dry adhesive that's on the foam tape. I'm also going around the outside edge of my vellum. This is tremendously important because we're going to make a shaker on the next layer. And if I didn't glue all the way around, my shaker bits could escape between the vellum and my watercolor panel. You can see I'm able to move that front panel a little bit because of the glue that was on there. I hit the button as I was pressing everything down. I know it's all looking good. Everything's still working. Then I have my white frame and acetate layer. The white frame is facing my desk, and so it's just acetate that I'm working on. And I put my foam tape, again, that 2mm foam tape, all the way around once again. I'm making sure there are no gaps. Then I brought in a couple different versions of the Trinity Stamps Sparkle Spots. I love these. They're a little translucent, very glittery, and so thin. So you can put a ton in there without needing a ton of foam tape. I used a mixture of white, blue, and grape sparkle spots. Just a few of the grape. I wanted to bring in that purple from our lower portion of our panel. And then I have the release paper is already off of my foam tape, and I will press that firmly. You guys, I love this so much. I'm pressing the button and they sort of shine through those sparkle spots as well. In the same digital card kit as the jellyfish are the sentiments. These are in the free download version that's in my Patreon. I'll link to it. I have a free Patreon membership. And there's a bunch of jellyfish sentiments. We're using birthday wishes and jellyfishes, but there's also, if you got stung by a jellyfish, I'd totally pee on you, or glow big or go home, which might be my favorite. I probably should have used that one on here. Next time. Then there's also some sentiments for crab, octopuses, octopi, you guys, whatever it is. Just keep swimming, wishing you the happiest birthday, tons of fun stuff. So I just use the tick marks to cut out a bunch of these strip sentiments, and they make sure that I get it perfectly straight. They're about 1/4 inch. It's like a standard size for a strip sentiment. I have an extra piece that I'm just going to use. I'm going to glue onto the back of it. It gives it just a little bit of lift. It makes it feel slightly more substantial and purposeful. I think sometimes a printed sentiment feels different than a stamped sentiment, and this is one of the ways I work around that. Then I have a 3/8 inch strip of teal cardstock that coordinates nicely with our watercolor. I just make sure that my sentiment is lined up on the top, bottom, and left. And then on that right-hand side, I trim it until it matches as well. I put that same foam tape on the back, and I'll use a little bit of wet glue, but I've brought in my Pear Blossom Press T-square ruler. This is the A2, but there's an A7 now as well that I just got at Paper Ganza, and I will add that onto my card. Because of the metallic nature of the watercolors that I used, it was going to be really difficult to stamp the word push in that bottom right-hand corner. So I'm adding some little iridescent bubble gems on there, and I will leave a note inside the card that says to push on the largest bubble, and that will make it light up. So I didn't have to try to stamp on top of that. It just would have gotten a little tricky. I'm not sure it would have stayed unless I'd used like a Stays-On ink, but even with the texture, it might have gotten wonky. My friends, here's one final look at our card. It lights up beautifully. It shakes beautifully. I hope that this inspires you to create a double interactive card of your own. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.